What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPod11 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All 32 pod TOJ talks. Back-to-back days. I'm going to call them an emergency pod because technically Joe and Paul took care of the emergency part of it. Zack Rosenblatt back from his honeymoon. Flight plan will be back on Monday. Tim is taking his much-needed, some much-needed vacation before we kind of get into the swing of things here. Zach, how you doing? The Jets have taken care of you, man. But both extensions on your honeymoon.
Yeah, I jokingly texted the Jets PR guy. I was like, I appreciate you guys, not dropping this news while I was during my wedding or honeymoon. And he's like, yeah, we talked about it and we said we were going to help you out. I'm like, yeah, okay. But
yeah, okay.
Like he said that jokingly, but which I appreciate. But it's I will say, I got back from my honeymoon I think a week ago. So my brain's still, or maybe it was more, maybe 2 weeks ago now. I don't even know time anymore, man. But my brain, I just turned in a column about Sauce and Garrett. Took me longer than usual to get words on the page. I think I stared at a blank screen for 15 minutes, a little bit of writer's block, and then you get into it. And I think that's going to publish in the morning or tonight. I'll tweet it out, but and I'll post it in the Discord too. But yeah, I'm very thankful they didn't, you never, even beyond this stuff, I've covered teams where crazy shit happens in the offseason, guys getting arrested or, crazy trade or this and that. And the Jets really have just, it's purposeful. Everybody you talk to is they did not want to make a splash. Their goal was to be quiet.
Yeah.
And they signed Justin Fields is the biggest thing they did. They hired Aaron Glenn and they re-signed these two guys. And these are all things that were obvious and they did all four of them. So
yeah, no, I've been talking. We've all been talking about this for a while. I'm not on an island here in any way, shape, or form. But no, we've been talking about this for a while since late March, early April. There was a lot of this is going to be a major priority. We want to get these guys done. And I'm going to give a couple people credit here that I normally would not be giving credit to. I'm going to give Woody some credit. I tweeted this out, and look, you obviously had the columns last year, and you and Diana did a really good job on kind of breaking down what was going on with the organization. I think there's been a lot of widespread talk about Woody's involvement and how things are being run and solid. There's so much that went on in the last 12 months. The Jets, Woody kind of stayed out of the way. Obviously, you can like or not like with the 33rd team how they operated, but at the end of the day, they got the candidate. Did they need to have them? I don't know. That they got the candidate that they wanted at the end of the day. Woody kind of stayed hands off, and then actually has stayed hands off throughout the process. They've brought in new people. You can argue if they brought in enough new people, and we can kind of go back again. You can go back and forth on all these things, but these extensions have been a priority. Woody in the past has been and again, it's not been usually receiver and corner. That's part of also why, with Quinn, it was does he want to pay defensive tackle that much money and all these different things? But Woody spent a lot of money the last couple of years on a team that sucked. And he's eating a lot of money on Aaron and CJ and these other guys. And, to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to be hands off and then I'm going to pony up, damn near $180 million in guaranteed money to two guys over the next couple of years. That's not anything to sneeze at. So I know Woody gets a lot of shit and rightfully so in a lot of ways. But I would say this offseason, last couple of months, he's done a lot of what everyone's asked. He's kind of stayed out of the way. He's paid the young players. The Jets have, even Sherwood as well, giving a linebacker $45 million is not anything to sneeze at as well. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but again, I know we give Woody a lot of a hard time, but sometimes credit to where it's due. James Dolan still, has kind of been hands off the Knicks and it's worked. And maybe Woody learned a little bit from your columns and what the Knicks have been doing.
Well, even just beyond that, before Quinn and the last first round pick they'd re-signed was Muhammad Wilkerson, and that didn't work out, obviously. So, it took them a while, but things are different now. We'll see if it leads to wins. Obviously, it's all going to be judged ultimately on wins. But I've said this to you. I've said this on our pod. I've written it. The process that they have going is so much better now, and I think the root of that is Woody not forcing his way into decisions and things like that, at least to this point. And yeah, the ownership and the front office and all that stuff, they deserve credit. I know it's sacrilege to mention this name around here for you, but Joe Douglas deserves credit for that 2022 draft class ultimately. Even beyond those two guys, obviously. But, I think at the end of the day, my takeaway, and this is in my column that I wrote that's coming out, take a step back I know there's people who, oh, why are you pay? You didn't have to pay them this early. Why are you giving this money? Like, remove all that stuff. Just focus on the fact that the Jets do not get players like this historically. They do not keep them, and these guys usually don't even want to stay here. So, like, this is all something that's worth celebrating. Like, through all the bullshit of the last 3 years, like, any sort of hope that this team had, remove the Aaron Rodgers of it all. Like, it started with these two guys because you had a star corner and you had a star receiver. And so if you ever had hope for the future, is that, okay, we had these 22, 23, 24-year-old kids who are stars now. And so if we can build the right pieces around them, they didn't, but if we can do that, but they're still here now. So, they're here now. They're under contract through 2030. Doesn't mean they'll be here through 2030, but they're under contract through 2030. They want to be Jets for life. I think Garrett obviously was one that there was a lot of questions about his future here. It was legitimate. People gave me shit. People gave Connor shit. People gave Diana for like reporting stuff about his unhappiness last year. It was real. I think you saw the national guys all of a sudden, oh, if Aaron Rodgers came back, he was going to request a trade. Well, yeah, we were saying that. And it was not only that, it was also like, if all the bullshit that kept happening on offense didn't stop, if the quarterback situation didn't improve, if offensive coordinator situation didn't get better, like Garrett Wilson's had 3 different offensive coordinators, I think 3 or 4 different wide receivers coaches. He's caught passes from like 9 or 10 quarterbacks. I can't remember the number. Just been disaster around him. He's still produced. And the non-Jets fans, I've seen reactions like, Garrett Wilson's not a top 5 receiver. It was like, well, he has the talent to be that. He just hasn't had the situation to be that. So, like, if you put Justin Jefferson, I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson level. He's probably a step below that. But if you put Justin Jefferson in the Jets situation the last few years, I don't know that Justin Jefferson is putting up 1,600 yards every year either. So, these are Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji came in here with an idea of the program they wanted to build, the kind of people they wanted in the building, personality, the culture. And so they got rid of the people that they didn't think were a part of that. They brought in people they believe can be a part of that, both front office and players. And now they're retaining guys like these two and Jamie and Sherwood that are the kind of person they want around. And Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner are mature leaders, star players, tired of all the bullshit with Sauce. Like he didn't have an amazing season, but he's an elite corner. Like, everybody chill.
Yeah.
And now they have the next step is winning games. Like, as Garrett said late last season, like, we're tired of like winning in the offseason. We need to win when the games count. And so this is a win in the offseason type move, not in the way that they've had these in the past. Like, this was the right move. But now they need to win. They need to justify these contracts. They need to do all that. And it starts against the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, of course. So.
Yeah. No, I'm on the same page as you. Like I said, I always thought these were going to get done. I think there was extreme confidence. And I got to give both these guys credit. I think, Sauce was a little bit more vocal in terms of, his contract. I think just Sauce naturally is a little bit more vocal in terms of, just social media and just kind of, he's just more of like an outgoing personality. Garrett is to an extent, but he's also somebody that like kind of keeps to himself and does his own thing. And, when's the last time a star receiver? I can't think of one in a while. Going through on a bad team, bad quarterback play, contract negotiation for an extension that's been that quiet in terms of Garrett had the one quote, hey, I want to be a Jet for life. And that was really it during the offseason. It was kind of like both sides kind of kept like this thing very cordial. And like there was no, obviously, again, that helps moving off of Rodgers. I know you mentioned you and Connor getting shit. I've said it a million times. Like those skill guys, I can't explain enough how happy they are. I think they've been pretty subtly taken their fair share of, I don't want to say shots, but even a guy like Brees who, hey, loves, Aaron and all these, Zach, he loves Zach. Like, I think he made it pretty clear how he feels about, hey, this guy's my age. There's the little things they've mentioned. There's been a lot more mentioned, off the record. So not singling Brees out, just in general, from a lot of the skill guys from last year, not named Allen Lazard. So I would say, like, just giving Garrett credit there, but I feel like the deals too, everyone looks at the bigger number. First of all, this happens every time somebody gets extended. They're either going to get top of market or right near, market value. Like that's guys, I hate to tell you, this is just what happens. When you get to free agency, you're going to get paid more. When you're going through an extension and somebody else gets paid $25 million, we saw it last year. Patrick Surtain got what, 24, and then A day later, Jalen Ramsey got 24.1 million. Jalen Ramsey didn't need an extension. He just wanted to be the highest paid corner. The Dolphins added on an extra 100K to his deal. Very stupid, by the way, because obviously they ended up moving him. But the point being, like, these guys are under team control for 6 more years. If you average it out, and I know this is it's a very favorable way to look at it because, again, it doesn't work like this. But look at through the course of the deal, like Sauce, it wouldn't even be the highest paid corner based on the entirety of the deal. Look at Garrett. He's the 5th highest paid now on the $32.5 million, but throughout the course of the deal, it's really like $25 million. And honestly, if Garrett had a great year this year, he was going to get 36, 37 million, even on like instead of the 32.5, right? Mm-hmm. Another reason it's imperative they got these done now. Terry McLaurin, Puka Nacua, Drake London, a lot of guys that are in that.
A lot more receivers than corners that are coming up. Yeah.
And then if you look at the corner market right across, town and Christian Gonzalez, like Christian Gonzalez has another great year. He was going to get 31, 32, and the Jets were going to have to pay him more. That's just the way these things work. So I think it's also a testament to their character in a lot of ways, especially from a Garrett perspective, to put the trust in Aaron Glenn of like, hey, hasn't been great for me here. And there's been a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of other stuff going on. Like they had to have buy-in with Glenn and Muji and like their plan too. It wasn't just about the Jets feeling good about those guys. They should feel good about those guys. They've been very successful through, a lot of bad stuff. Like I think they had to feel confident in Glenn and Muji and their direction, Tanner Engstrand and these guys, Rick Spielman, et cetera. I guess what I kind of was curious about from your perspective is like, we've seen these 2 big extensions, right? And I think, we'll get the joint presser, I'm sure, in the next couple days or right when they get to camp, and there'll be a lot of good vibes. Do you feel like there's a lot of other guys that need to get extended or are on the horizon of getting extended? How do you feel like those maybe potentially get prioritized? And then I want to talk a little bit about Mason Taylor and the 2nd-round pick situation.
Yeah, I don't have as good of a read on that. I feel like maybe it's more of I think AVT, you have to wait and see if he can stay healthy. And then Simpson, I don't know if it was you or I saw somebody alluding to like the idea of it being a John JFM type situation where it's like, that was you. Okay. I did see it. See, giving you credit. Like during the season, like if he's having a good year again, it was, you need to make sure a guy can also follow up a good year like that because he hasn't played like that well in the NFL before.
Yeah, he's another season like it, right? Like the wife, his wife, I believe, or fiance's. I think Connor and Joe mentioned she's in a residency here for the next 3 years for I think medical school or something. I don't want to misquote it. And also, like he's 28 and he's a average to above average guard. AVT is a former 1st-round pick that, just for clarity here, like I saw a tweet before, AVT 4 for 44. Dude, there's no fucking shot unless AVT gets severely injured. He's getting 4 years, $44 million. He's getting much more like 4 for 84 as like the floor of a team-friendly deal. Like, look at the guard. Sorry, I saw that. I was like, dude, you have time to double that, buddy.
It's hard to project him just because the injuries are a factor. So. Like if he signed right now, if they signed him right now, maybe they could get him for that lower rate. Honestly, I don't know. But he also might want to bet on himself. So I just know that, the Jets were not even going to start with the Sauce and Garrett stuff until they were through the early part of the offseason. Like they took their time with it, and they didn't feel like pressure from the Sauce and Garrett side necessarily. I do know the Jets wanted it done before training camp. They didn't want to go into camp with that being a distraction, especially because we know we want to sign them. So what's the point of like, nickel and diming or whatever. So, and Mason Taylor, I think is probably the next priority now. And then, if you feel good about Simpson and or AVT, like I would probably be surprised if they signed both of them before the end of the year, but maybe one of them, I don't know. It's this regime is clearly willing to start early. So, I don't think it'd be a terrible idea. I mean, and then there's the other ones like, if Brees gets off to a hot start, if Jermaine returns to form, getting early on Jermaine would be a good idea because defensive ends get a lot of money if they're good. So these are all interesting things. Or even, if Jermaine looks solid to start out and they just come to like a more team-friendly contract, like it's not the worst idea because I think if he's healthy, he's going to be a very good player. Even if he's not a star, he can be a very good defensive end for a long time. So there's things like that. But yeah, they don't need to be in a rush for any of those guys, I don't think necessarily. Even if they don't sign AVT and Simpson before the end of the year, you go into the offseason. If they have great seasons, then you don't feel that bad about paying them a lot of money anyway. So I know this regime and this coaching staff and the front office, they're very excited about this offensive line as a whole, and those two guys are a big part of it. I think the depth is a big part of it. They're excited about having Josh Myers and even Chuks Okorafor in the building as backups because they thought those guys were starting caliber guys. So they feel great about that group. They feel great about where Membo is. So I think they probably want to see it in action. They want to see this O-line in action. They want to see how they do in training camp, how they do at the beginning of the season. Because, it wouldn't be a year ago, we were all talking about this offensive line looking like one of the best in the league. So, and it was not that. Tyron Smith, he looked dominant to me in training camp. Then he looked old in the regular season. So, Moses banged up. The story. But this is a group that still has to prove itself. I think we've talked about this before or maybe it was on Flight Plan. Because of the Athletic Football Show, I think they had the Jets
last groups, right?
Yeah, last, and they were a little critical of the O-line, and the point being it looks like a really good group on paper, but again, I don't want to repeat, but nothing's necessarily guaranteed with this group. We don't know what Olu will look like in year 2. We don't know what Membo will look like as a rookie. Tittman is fighting for his job technically, and then AVT banged up a lot, and Simpson had his first great year. So, nothing guaranteed. I'm very high in this group. The team is very high in it, but I think you need to see it in action before you hand out these big paydays to the two guards.
Yeah, I think Simpson's probably the one that likely in season. There's no rush, frankly. Simpson is probably getting an extra year or 2 years if he gets extended. It's not like he's getting some mega extension. Yeah. AVT is just a different level of, and I think AVT maybe is a guy that we see get to free agency. The Jets, if he has a great year, the Jets have interest and hey, we'll come back. You can top the number type of thing if you or whatever. They're, hey, we want to be here, but let's see what we can get. That feels more likely. And then it's Quincy and Brees are guys, and it's going to really.
Quincy's another one I forgot to mention.
Yeah, too, I know. We just don't talk about it as much. It's really going to be how this year goes and how the staff, they've wanted the new staff. And
it seems like the staff really is high on him.
He seems to be. He's been very vocal, and he had a nice.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine and I don't know this for a fact, but he got paid by Jamie and Sherwood. I imagine they had to have a conversation with him about the fact that he was about to be underpaid compared to Sherwood. So, honestly, if I was putting money on the next guy, if they were going to sign somebody early, maybe it would be him, honestly. But I don't say that with confidence. But I do think they're very high on him, and I think he's gonna. I'm sure you've talked about this. In this defense, I think he really fits it really well because of his athleticism. He's gonna be a really good blitzing linebacker in Steve Wilkes' defense. I think.
He should.
I could see his sack numbers looking pretty good for a linebacker this year, making more plays. I think last year was a little bit of a down year personally for him relative to what he did the year before that. I flew under the radar a little bit because they had so many other problems, but I didn't really see him making as many plays as we're accustomed to. But he's at his best, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. So I'm curious to see what he looks like in this defense and what that means for his contract.
I shouldn't say it's funny because it's not funny, but we talked so much last offseason of hey, they haven't had any defensive attrition in 2 years, and it's bang, first week of training camp, Michael Carter's hurt. Then Quincy has been back all season. Jermaine pops the Achilles week 2. Sauce had a down year. DJ Reed was hurt the whole year. It felt like Tony Adams is was hurt or injured at half the. It's of course, as soon as you say anything, hey, well, maybe Woody cooked a little bit with not wanting to extend Reddick, I guess, until he got into camp, that bum. But no, I think Simpson again is the easier one. AVT, I think Brees, Quincy are more. Really got to see how it goes, and then I think next offseason you get into the Jermaines, Will McDonald, and Tittman early. Those are. Hey, let's see how the year goes. Will McDonald has 15 sacks next year. It's a conversation we're having. If Will McDonald has 8 sacks and he's a good player, they're probably going to do what they do with Jermaine and pick up a 5th year. I think this is a good precedent for if you play really well and you do a lot of things right in the locker room, this staff, at least early on, it's only a couple months, has shown the willingness to say, cool, we want to keep you here. And Glenn is very vocal, the owners' meetings and things like that. Just a couple quick things. Quincy had a quote today, and not to rehash the solid Douglas era, but Quincy had a quote today in Rich's piece on ESPN. I would say is pretty indicting of not anything we haven't covered. So this is not new stuff, but for Quincy to say what he said was, I found it to be an interesting quote to say the least. I will read the quote here because I want to make sure I don't botch it, just because you never want to be in that. The quote essentially, let's see if I can pull it up here. The quote said, "The reason I know things are changing is there's no bitching about anything as far as how we're doing things." Basically, illuminating how soft they were last year. I know this is what happens in a new regime, right? Like, guys shit on the old thing. It's like the ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend thing. I guess, just generally speaking, none of this again is surprising, but are you surprised, I guess, in any way, shape, or form, how vocal everyone's been of like, yeah, we were really soft and like weren't coached very hard, and it was a country club, and like guys are kind of openly saying that. Because it's almost indicting on them a little bit too, of just like, why
Yeah.
did you accept that? But I guess just in general, I know things are changing, and this is a huge culture changing moment, right? Again, Garrett and Sauce extended, it's awesome, but just curious on, you covered it a bunch, obviously written about it a little bit as well.
I mean, I will say, to be fair, Quincy, if anybody, did call it out. Like in London last year, if you
Very
remember,
vocal last year.
he had a pretty indicting quote, and then Saul was fired a few days later. I don't know if they were necessarily connected, but yeah, I mean, I've talked about it. Like there definitely is a different vibe. Like, I mean, they had nearly 100% attendance. Like, the biggest thing I allude to always is Salah's had the idea in his head that he wanted the players to lead. Aaron Glenn is the leader of this team. Like, they're a young team, so that's inherent. But like, he is the face of this team. He is the leader of this team, and everybody goes where he goes. And this is what this organization needed. Like, Salah's thing, if the Jets won more games, then Salah would have been like, it would have been viewed in a different way. But like, when you lose and you have that kind of culture, it's really like emphasized, and you see it in the mistakes this team was making and the poor coaching and all that stuff. Like, beyond like what I saw in camp, which was very encouraging, you look at what happened with the Lions last year with Aaron Glenn. They were losing guys left and right. I mean, they pulled freaking Jamal Adams off the street for like 2 weeks, played, and their defense was like not skipping a beat. Like, they did not crumble under the weight of like pressure. And the Jets did that constantly under Robert Saleh and Ulbrich. So I just don't see that aspect happening anymore. Like, maybe they're not going to stack up talent wise with a lot of the teams that are playing in terms of like defense versus offense like they used to. But I think they're going to be, even just in general, but I think they're going to be better coached. They're going to be better prepared. They're focusing on the fundamentals. They're focusing on like doing things the right way. And, it seems like very obvious and basic things that like you should be able to do the fundamentals and the basic things, and you shouldn't need to be coached to do it. But, the Jets need that, and they're a young team, and this is a coaching staff that is really focused on development. Like, that's why they had the free agency they did. They didn't make any splashes. They signed guys who are on the younger side, who have tools, who have shown something in the NFL, but maybe like have something to prove, or guys that like were cast aside or forgotten about, like even like a Chukes Okorafor. Like, he started 60 games for the Steelers, up and down, obviously. And then people kind of forgot about him because of what happened with the Patriots last year. But, the Steelers believed in him enough to start him for 60 games. So the Jets believe like they can get something out of him because of their coaching staff, ultimately. So the coaching, like, maybe the roster is worse on paper from the last 2 years to now, but I think the coaching staff is better, and that might be more important, frankly.
Yeah, no, I want to kind of just give one shout out as well. One change that happened this offseason, I think we didn't talk. I don't think it was talked too much about. But David Sochi, who was the Jets cap guy, for lack of a better word, right? He was director of football administration, moved on. He'd been there for a long time. Nick Sabella moved into his role, which is like, for lack of a better word, he's a Jets cap guy. There's a lot of other roles he play in that role, but in his first offseason, like, I think they've changed. We talked about a lot of change that's gone on. Head coach, GM, number 1, number 2, number 3 in the front office. Being the director of football administration is a pretty large like deal and job in an organization, and not casting aspersions on what's been there. But when you have a change over there, it's very curious to see how the Jets structure contracts, how the Jets are going to deal with extensions and things like that. And we'll see how Garrett and Sauce's deals kind of break down. It seems like it's going to be heavy money in year 3 and year 4. So, the large amount of like cap hits are going to be pushed out. And I'm sure there's no guaranteed money, I believe. I think Adam Schefter reported after 2028. So the last 2 years of those deals, we'll probably be having the same exact conversation, unless Zach's on, ESPN and leading sports center at that time. But, and if that's not the case, well, it'll be, I'm sure, negotiate extensions. Those guys will be 27, 28 at that time. If things go well. Point being, I wanted to see how they would approach this offseason from a financial perspective of would Woody spend money? And B, how would they structure contracts? Because under Joe Douglas, a ton of void years, which is commonplace in the league, by the way. It's not like anything weird, but just always an interesting thing to observe. And we'll see how these deals shake out, but I think that's something to mention as well. Lastly, we talked Mason Taylor. You tweeted out earlier, and we kind of slightly touched on it. This has been a thing of the last couple of years. This is not a new thing with second round picks. This year, it's just like all the rookies are like, no, like we all want guaranteed, the fully guaranteed. There's void year or not void years. There's basically what's happened with Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold. Basically, if you get caught, the team doesn't want to take on the money. There's certain cash and different things. Do you want to just touch on that real quick? I know everyone else got signed really quick. Again, that was great to see. Mason Taylor, it's not a Mason Taylor thing. It's the entire rookie class is kind of taking a stand in this, the new CBA approaching.
Yeah, the Texans started it by giving a fully guaranteed deal like right away to their.
They did with Jalen Petrie too, if I remember a couple years ago, and everyone's like, "What the fuck, man?"
And when you do it early like that, it really like pisses off the rest of the league because then the agents are like, "Ooh, then we can ask for that now because somebody else did it." I believe the same slot last year had like 90% guaranteed or something, and the Texans probably were just like, "What's a few more percent? Like, let's just do it, and let's be ahead of it instead of falling behind." But I think that's what's going on. Everybody's waiting for like the next second round pick the next team to like bite the bullet. I don't think this is going to be linger into training camp. We'll see what happens, but they need Mason Taylor there early. He's 20 years old. He needs development. He's an important part of this offense. I don't know if his contract's going to be fully guaranteed or not. I would guess not, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't see this lingering. I don't see this becoming like a holdout and an issue. The fact that like so many second round picks haven't signed is alarming, but I think it'll probably start kicking into gear at the end of this week, I would guess.
Yeah, I assume a lot of those guys are not going to want to miss camp time. As much as being a second round pick sounds like, wow, you're almost a first round pick. Like there's no fifth year option. You're making far less money. Those things matter, and that's why these guys want these players to get pushed in the first round because there's a lot more money on the table. I guess final closing thoughts here, Zach. I know you're going to have Flight Plan back. You have an article coming out tomorrow or later tonight. And then obviously Monday you'll be back with Tim. Potentially, you might see my face there as well. I guess final closing thoughts here. Again, Garrett and Sauce extended. Been over the terms everyone's very familiar with. I guess what are your kind of closing thoughts and as we wrap here?
Yeah, I just think, who the hell knows if this regime's going to work out ultimately once the season starts, if they start getting their ass kicked or whatever. But I just think it's very clear to me that this regime came in with a plan, and it wasn't as I write in my column, which if you guys read it later, they didn't pitch a get rich quick scheme with Woody, which would have worked in the past. They pitched, I don't know how many years, but let's say a 5-year plan. Here's the plan over the course of our tenure. We'll become winners if we do these things. We're not going to rush into it this first year, and it's the right move. They know their ceiling is not Super Bowl this year. So what's the point of going all in to win 9 games or 10 games or whatever it is and just making the playoffs or just missing the playoffs? There's nothing to gain from that. There's to gain from, taking some lottery tickets, drafting some rookies who can play right away, paying your stars and seeing how it works out, and trying to compete and build the right culture. And then as you start to build that right culture, you can bring in other stars from other teams. You can bring in big time free agents, things like that, but they're not rushing it. And that's the first time I can remember in recent memory that they are not rushing it. Even Salah's first year, they didn't do anything crazy, but they did sign a few relatively, I can't remember their free agency class that year. I'm blanking. That was 21.
Carl Lawson, Corey Davis.
Yeah, Carl Lawson, Corey Davis. Yeah, those were in the. Yeah,
don't forget Jets legend Jarrod Davis, who they signed $7 million in the first hour of free agency. That dude fucking sucked.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Sucked on the Lions, sucked on the Jets, then sucked on the Giants, and is now out of the league. So thank you, Joe Douglas, and
there you go.
For that. Sorry,
but they didn't even make a Corey Davis, Carl Lawson level signing, which Corey Davis wound up being an overpay. I think Lawson was good. He got screwed by the injury ultimately. Like they didn't even do those. They focused, like I said, on like Justin Fields was the big investment, and ultimately, if he's good, it's an underpay. If he's bad, it's a slight overpay, and it doesn't really handicap you going forward. So everything they did was logical. They didn't take any huge swings. They went for a lot of base hits. I mean, you could argue Justin Fields is a big swing, but not like an expensive big swing. So I just think so far all signs are positive on Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. I've been really high in what they've done. I went in not skeptical, but like unsure of if they were going to come in and know what they were doing, because Darren Muji kind of emerged out of nowhere. He never even interviewed for a GM job before. Aaron Glenn, for all the impressive things he had, like he's never been a head coach. He's a first time head coach with a defensive background, all that shit. So like, you don't know what it's going to be. And I've just been impressed with every step of the way what they've done. And that includes the Garrett and Sauce stuff.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think, again, in wrapping here, end of the day, the Jets communicated. Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and the Jets, all in tandem, have been communicating since basically we were in Indy. Hey, this is a priority. We're not going to rush things, but we want to be Jets for life. And they meant it. The Jets meant that they wanted to get these guys extended and that Woody was going to stay out of the way. And they got it done. And like, there's just not a lot of times in recent memory with the Jets where we want to do this. The players want to do this. We're all in tandem. We're not going to cause drama with it. We're just going to get it done in a mature adult fashion, and credit where it's due. Like Garrett took a deal that looks good on paper, but it's going to be a team-friendly deal in the next 12 months. Because Puka Nacua is going to get $37 million a year. And then Drake London's going to get 33 because Garrett got 32.5. Like that's the way these things work. And then on Sauce's front, again, there wasn't a rush to do it because once Stingley got paid, like Sauce was the next guy. But again, the Jets get it done. They satisfy what he wants. He can say he's the highest paid corner in NFL history. He gets his extension. But at the end of the day, these guys, I think they're going to be a little bit more team friendly in the back end than people are maybe potentially expecting that don't maybe agree with the deals. And then on the front end, like the Jets are going to be likely drafting a quarterback unless Justin Fields has some elite breakout. And even then, they might still draft one. They're about to go into a rookie quarterback scale again, where like it's going to time up nicely for this team and kind of they got to win games, right? End of the day, they have to win games. Aaron Glenn's going to actually have to be good on the field, not just what he's been doing so far. Darren Muji's going to have to be fine, really good draft. Like all these things are true, and I understand what fans are going to say to me and you and everybody. Got to prove it on the field. I get it. But to prove it on the field, you got to have good players in the building. And Garrett Wilson's not going to be a Denver Bronco or a Carolina Panther, contrary to popular belief that was on Twitter the last few months. So, Zach, appreciate you hopping on as my dog just scratching his door. Appreciate you for listening. Zach will have an article out tomorrow. Joe and Paul had a reaction pod, and then I know I'll be back later in the week. Dan will be back. Live show tickets, Connor Film Room, Zach and Tim back on Monday. Lots to do. Appreciate you for listening. We'll talk to you guys soon.